On the morning of the 9th of September, 1513, a Scottish king stood on Branxton Hill and watched an English army move below him. James IV had brought one of the largest armies Scotland had ever raised across the River Tweed. By sunset, the king would be dead. Much of Scotland's nobility would lie beside him, and a flourishing Renaissance court would be plunged into grief. This was the road to Flodden. James IV was no reckless medieval relic. He was a Renaissance monarch, educated, energetic, fascinated by ships, artillery, medicine, and new ideas. He had married Margaret Tudor, sister of Henry VIII, after Scotland and England agreed a treaty of peace. Yet Scotland's older bond with France, the Auld Alliance, still endured. In 1513, Henry crossed the Channel to campaign against France. The French king appealed to James for help. James answered by invading northern England, forcing English strength away from the war in Europe. The Scottish host crossed the Tweed in late August. Its heavy cannon battered Norham Castle into submission, and Ford and Ettal also fell. The invasion began with confidence, but time was already working against the Scots. Supplies dwindled. Some men went home. Rain turned the Northumberland ground heavy beneath their boots.
Henry was abroad, but England was not defenceless. Thomas Howard, Earl of Surrey, gathered a northern army of roughly 26,000 men. James may still have had between 30 and 40,000. The Scots held a powerful position on high ground at Flodden Edge, and a direct English assault would have been ruinous. Surrey chose manoeuvre instead. His army moved northeast, crossed the River Till, then turned south. The English were now threatening the Scottish rear and the road home. James shifted his army to Branxton Hill and prepared to fight. At about 4 in the afternoon, the guns opened. Scotland possessed formidable artillery, but its great siege pieces were difficult to handle in a field battle. The English guns were lighter and faster. Smoke rolled across the slopes as the Scottish divisions began their descent. The first attack struck hard. On the English right, Scottish spearmen pushed their opponents back, and for a moment the battle hung in the balance. Then Surrey committed reserves and steadied the line. Elsewhere, the ground betrayed the advance. Hidden dips and boggy patches broke the order of the long Scottish pikes. Men packed together, lost momentum, and were forced into close combat. Against them came English soldiers carrying bills, shorter, hooked pollards that were brutally effective once the Scottish formations had collapsed. James did not command from safety. He advanced with his own division into the heart of the fight, aiming for Surrey's standard. The king and his nobles fought on foot as the English closed around them. Arrows fell into the Scottish rear. The struggle became a crush of mud, steel, and exhausted men. By nightfall, the Scottish army had been shattered. James IV was found among the dead. Bishops, earls, abbots, knights, and thousands of ordinary Scots had fallen with him. Estimates vary, but the losses were catastrophic. Perhaps between 5,000 and 14,000 Scottish dead. Almost every part of the kingdom knew a household that did not return. The disaster reached beyond the battlefield. James's infant son was crowned James V at Stirling only 12 days later. Edinburgh strengthened the walls that tradition remembers as the Flodden Wall. Songs of mourning carried the memory of the men lost in Northumberland. Flodden was not simply a tale of brave Scots defeated by bad ground. It was a collision of alliance, ambition, technology, and command. James had brought a modern army south, yet on one rain-darkened afternoon,
its advantages vanished. On Branxton Hill, Scotland lost a king and a generation. Subscribe to Scottish History Relived for more cinematic stories from Scotland's past.